You are live on YouTube.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's, what time is it? I don't even know what time. It's 12:25. I apologize for starting late. This is the Government Operations and Advocacy agenda. I ask that everyone be respectful of each other, to take the high road and be the professionals that they are. So, on the agenda, first thing is I want to call and ask if there's a motion to approve of the prior committee meetings. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Leggett, would you like to make that motion? All right, seconded by,
I'll second it.
okay, Mr. Conover, thank you. Seconded by Mr. Conover, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, passed. We've got a couple agenda items, that's it. So it should be a fairly short meeting. The first thing on the action agenda item is the request from New York State Conservation Fund Advisory Board to consider expanding the age range for youth hunting to ages 12 and 13 for big game. The expanded age range is allowed within the enacted state budget, Part ZZ of PPGG bill, but it does require a county opt-in. Now, we have the pleasure today of having two people via Zoom and one person here in person, Mr. Gedney. And I think I'll start off with Mr. Gedney, since he's been waiting here for an hour and a half patiently, to ask if he has any comments on this proposal.
Well, what I wanted to do is thank you for addressing this first off. My background is I've been a hunter at
Mr. Gedney, would you go to the podium though? I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Then everybody on Zoom can.
They can all see you on Zoom then. They want to see your smiling face.
My interest in reaching out to you folks was mainly due to my background. I've been a New York State hunter ed instructor for 29 years. I've been a 4-H shooting sports instructor with Washington County for close to 30 years. I'm also the Washington County coordinator for the shooting sports program. I have been involved in this issue for almost 25 years. I was involved when we reduced the big game hunting age from 16 to 14. I also was very much involved with working with different groups to get the small game age lowered to 12. And I have also coordinated and run several mentored programs. I've been involved with mentoring kids for the youth waterfowl. I also helped organize a program for young turkey hunters, mainly from the 15 to 12-year-olds through the Hudson Falls Fish and Game Club. This year we have 9 kids going on a mentored hunt. So that brings me over to about 120 kids that I've actually coordinated programs for mentored youth hunts. I've also been involved with mentored youth hunts for pheasant hunting. And I just thought with my background, interestingly enough, my oldest son shot his first deer. He was 16 years old. The law changed, and my youngest son, he was 14 years old. So I have been right through this. I have probably been on, I can't imagine the number of hunts that I've been on with young hunters below 15 years old, including my own children, mentored hunts that I've organized, and pretty well versed in this. I've literally been into this for 30 years. And also my experience with the firearms end is as a 4-H shooting sports instructor. And I also was integral in bringing high school clay target to this area, which we now have 16 schools. I was the actual one of the organizers that put together the first meetings of school officials to bring this very successful program in. 103 schools, 1,600 kids this year. John Bowe, who is tuning in, was an incredible help from the administrative end and working with schools directly. So from the shooting sports end and access to firearms and firearms training, we have that, and also just our field experience with regards to young hunters. We are huge advocates, which we'll talk about, for lowering the age to 12. It makes us consistent with most states in the United States. Mm-hmm. It also allows the hunting families to be able to go and fully envelop themselves with a younger group, a group that is proven to be extremely safe, which is the under 15-year-olds. And we're just doing what hunting families want here and what has been actually proposed something like 27 years ago. We've been 27 years trying to get to where we are today. And for hunting families, this is a big deal. So I'll stop there. I can
Okay.
really answer any questions that you want. Hand it over to the other two.
I'll open it up to the committee first, sir. If they have any questions. Does anybody on the committee have any questions for Mr. Getney? Okay, first, Mr. Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm just curious, is this going to go for a public hearing? Or is this just a resolution that we pass on our own?
This would have to be a local law.
So it would
go for
require a public hearing?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, I would much prefer that we had that type of input from the public on this. Thank you.
Good question. Who else would like, Mr. Leggett and then Ms. Bramer?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will take effect this fall, it looks like.
Yes, for a 2-year period. Then it sunsets at the end of 2 years. And then we haven't got a huge amount of guidance on moving forward, but we're hoping that it'll just move through statewide. Obviously, from my standpoint, this should be a state law. And all counties should buy in, because there's going to be administrative issues when counties that are next to each other may not be following the same set of rules.
I did notice, now that you mentioned it, obviously Washington County has decided to opt in and hold a public hearing, and so has Saratoga County. Now, I can't speak for Essex County. I don't know. Maybe you do, whether they've decided to go forward also.
Well, New York State DEC sent out an email to all hunter ed instructors, and then this got distributed out, and they asked folks like us to get involved in the process. That was their first way. There is a big push to try and do this prior to June 1st so that the counties can be listed in the New York State syllabus, so that there won't be a confusion of where you went and can't do this. So you're seeing counties being very proactive to beat the June 1st date, so that when the syllabus comes out, people can look in there and say, yes, Warren County, a 12 or 13-year-old can hunt deer with a firearm. So that's why you're seeing this quick push. Mr. Henke is pushing in Washington County. He's already gone through the process. And I did hear Saratoga County is trying to do the same. They're just trying to get ahead of the curve regarding the June 1st date.
So let me get this correct. If this board, if this committee decides to pass along this resolution, because we have a June 1st date to be a kind of a deadline date, correct? So we can participate this year?
No, there is no deadline for participating, but the print date for the rule book, the syllabus, has got to be for June 1st. You could approve this later and you'll get in, but then people would have to call your county clerk's office, a licensing issuing agent, or look online. And the state really has learned that a lot of people who don't have white space access or other things are not able to go to the current regs online. They still use the book. And that is a book that is going to hold more weight. So that's why this June 1st date, and you see people wanting to move forward.
From a logistics standpoint, it makes sense, right? I get that. Okay. Ms. Bramer, you have a question?
I have a couple comments. I wanted to say, just from a public policy standpoint, I really applaud your perseverance over the many, many years to get you to get your advocacy group to this point. And I'd like to say that I'm happy to support Warren County opting into this particular option to allow hunting for our families with younger people. I have younger children, a younger son in particular, and I think that this would be perfectly acceptable for him to go into that route. And it provides an opportunity for our children to learn at a very young age hunter safety. So I think it's a good option to allow and to get us out there early so that people know about it in advance. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. McGowan, you have a comment?
Well, I did, and that's, I couldn't say it better than Supervisor Bramer. I really agree. This is a great program, and to bring it in at such a young age. And I too applaud you for a 27-year effort here, and knowing John very well and his involvement, and also being a member of the Dunham's Bay Club Fish and Game. It really is important, and the rules and the safety is an aspect. And I know how hard you guys work to train all these kids, and I think it's a great family, and I hope if whatever I can do to help to have New York push this through and make it a statewide, it'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. Mr. Wild, you have a second comment?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And it's more of a request that the resolution that we pass to the full board for the consideration of a local law also includes public comment on YouTube. to make sure that we get the ability for anyone who has to comment on this issue to be able to make that happen.
Well, as we all know, the county is now open for business, and we encourage everyone and anyone to come on up, stand like Mr. Gedney's doing and speak. We always encourage that. We haven't been able to do that for 14 months, but we now are available to do that. I don't think we need to have that in the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, may I call a vote to the committee?
A vote?
On the committee, on my motion to amend. I don't even see the resolution. But as we move this forward, I'd like to have that in there. Having the chair making a determination solely doesn't represent the democratic process for the committee to have their way in. We need to be able to weigh in on this. I would like to understand what the other committee members have to feel on this.
Before I call that, any public meeting is open to every person publicly via the in-person or and Zoom or YouTube, excuse me. So yes, Ms. Hogan?
I'm not on your committee, but thank you for the opportunity.
You're
to
welcome.
speak. You have two other presenters today.
Yes, so we got to get to them. So if your amendment is, do we hold it on YouTube? I'm all for that. In fact, by law, I believe,
want the comment.
by law, Mr. Wild, I'm speaking, thank you. By
I'm
law,
sorry. I had the floor and I want to talk about this. We can't just throw it aside.
we have-
I'm asking for the committee to consider this before we adjourn, with due respect to our visitors, before we adjourn, to decide whether or not these comments should be taken from YouTube. That's all I'm asking for.
And I think we all agree they should.
So
But
we're
the-
going to allow comments on YouTube and during the public
In a
hearing
public section, in a public hearing, yes.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
In the resolution.
Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Gedney? No? Okay.
Hear from John and Eric.
Yes, now, thank you very much, Mr. Gedney, for coming up here in person. You are well-spoken and obviously an expert on the subject matter,
Thank you.
and you're very persistent. 27 years doing something is, I spent 6 years on the airport issue, so I can understand you being persistent. Okay. Now we have two other speakers. Let's get right to them. I apologize for being late to them. That would be, we'll start off with Mr. John Bow, excuse me. He's the Cornell Cooperative Extension 411 and Family Living Team Coordinator. And I've met John before, and he's a great guy. And John, are you on the phone?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you are. Now I see you even better. Okay, so thanks, John. So what are your comments?
So I'm not here to tell you whether you should or shouldn't vote. I'm simply here to present facts, which is part of my job, to help you make that decision. I am a hunter education instructor like George. I've been a hunter education instructor for 16 years. I'm also a 4-H shooting sports instructor and actually run with Bill Schwerd of Saratoga County, the New York State 4-H shooting sports program, which reaches about 40,000 youth a year. Simply the facts as you consider this before you, according to research from the New York State Department of Conservation, youth ages 12 to 13 who are accompanied by a knowledgeable mentor are the safest group of hunters. Statistically, they are the safest group of hunters. And when I say accompanied, that means physical distance from the mentor to the mentee, an arm's length. Youth 12 years of age and having completed a hunter education program and purchased a license have hunted small game since 1991 with a very strong safety record. New York State 4-H shooting sports, which has a 30-year history of educating youth of firearm safety, including youth 12 years of age or older in the operations of firearms. That includes shotguns, rifles, muzzleloaders for target recreation and hunting, has never had an accident in our 30-year history. Mentored youth using firearms when they are directly under supervision are the safest group. New York State is only one of 4 states that does not let educated hunters 12 to 14 hunt big game. And research by Responsive Management, which is a national organization contracted by many states to provide data about hunters, fishermen, and other groups that interact with wildlife. Their research shows that families that hunt together do more activities together, spend more time communicating with one another. So whether it's a grandfather and grandchild, a grandmother and a grandchild, or a parent or a caregiver working with that child, when they are out in the field together, that often leads to more time together in other areas of their life. That's all I have to say today. If you'd like to provide any questions, I'm glad to take them.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee members first? Mr. John? Seeing none? Okay, any questions from other board members here today? Okay, seeing none. John, that was well said and very factual, and we appreciate you taking the time to come on and discuss it with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker today is Erica Patton. She's a youth hunter education instructor. And is Erica, where's she?
I am here.
Thank you, Erica. I see you. Thanks. Okay, we'd love to hear your comments.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all as well. I echo the comments from Mr. Gedney and Mr. Bowe. I've also spoken with members of my community. All the feedback so far has been very positive. This is something that everybody is really looking forward to. And it really is a great opportunity to get our youth out there and get an additional 2 years of hands-on experience in the field. Currently in New York State, youth are allowed to use the firearms that would be needed to harvest big game, but they're only allowed to hunt small game, where youth at 12 years old can hunt big game with archery. So I don't think the question is so much of hunting big game, because they're able to do that with archery. In my experience with youth shooting sports, I've been a hunter education instructor now for coming up on 5 years. I am also a registered merit badge counselor with Boy Scouts of America for rifle, shotgun, archery. I am a National Archery in Schools program coach, and I am the head coach for the Johnsburg Central High School Play Target team. So I also don't have as much experience as the previous two gentlemen, but I've learned a lot of great things from them. And, in my experience with kids with shooting sports, they do understand what a great responsibility it is to use the firearms. They're very aware of their surroundings. They are very cautious and safe. And I think, safety is definitely something on their forefront anytime they're in that sort of situation. So, by allowing the age to be lowered to 12, it's definitely going to get them, again, the biggest thing is more hands-on experience with a mentor in the field.
Well said. Thank you. Are there any questions from the board members? I see Mr. Leggett. Go ahead.
Thanks. It's with the influx of 12, 14-year-olds coming in for education, will we be able to supply the demand for education and get their card?
Did you hear that, Erica?
Yes, we are back to offering in-person classes. I know, at least in my town, when we start hearing of a need, I, as well as many other instructors, I'm sure would be willing to have those classes available. There are classes still available online if somebody chose to do it online, but we are offering the in-person classes as well. And I've never said no to having a class, once a year, with the exception of last year. That was a little different, but.
And if I could interject something.
Can I add a little input into that?
Yes, Mr. Gedney, would you like to add to that?
Most hunting families do have their youngsters take hunter ed at 12 or 13 years old. If you look at the array of ages in a hunting family, that is very common because it is just part of what they do. Plus, in most hunting families, it would be common for a hunter to hunt something other than big game, whether it be waterfowl, turkeys, whatever it may be. So that 12-year-old can hunt. It's just he can't hunt deer with a firearm. So we wouldn't expect a massive influx. If we do see any influx, it would probably be just due to the kids wanting to be in front of people. And we're capable of that. But please understand that in a hunting family, most youngsters at 12 or 13 would normally be taking the course, and it's geared towards that.
Excellent. Any other questions from the board members or from the other supervisors who are here today? Okay, Supervisor Leggett has moved to bring it to the floor. Do we have a second? Second by Mr.
Second
Wild.
for discussion.
Okay, discussion. Mr. Wild.
Mr. Chairman, I haven't seen the resolution, but I would like to ensure that there's language in there that we receive real-time comment on YouTube during the public hearing. Based on the gun violence that's occurred recently, this past week, it's been quite extensive. But I think once a week we're having something that I think it's important for the public to have a chance to weigh in on this, and also have a chance to listen to our experts again about the benefits of the safety program and what that means to us. I'm in favor of it because I think education is great, but I want to make sure we have that public comment, and it may take a long time to get through it, but I think it's the best thing that we can do in terms of making the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Wild. As you may know or may not know, we take all public comment on a public hearing. So we always take all the comments, so this won't change. So I don't think we need an amendment to say that specifically, that is our policy and procedures now, that we take public comment on public hearings. But I would like to see if
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind,
well,
we've turned off public comment on YouTube now. It's not on. I just checked. I looked on my computer. There's no ability for me or any other of our constituents to add a public comment on YouTube. They're turned off.
This is not a public hearing right now, Mr.
I understand, but it's still, we're still representing our constituents.
Mr. Wild, I just stated what we do at a public hearing, which is we take all comments at a public hearing. Now, if that's not the answer you want, I don't know what to tell you. Now, I'm going to ask these three experts to please be available when we do have the public hearing. I'm sure our constituents would love to hear their input. And again, we'll be open to any other comments from anybody else in the public. Any other discussion on this?
Is that a ruling from the
Any
chair?
other discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, is that a ruling from the chair? I just asked for the other committee members to weigh in if they would, to see if I'm out of line. I'm totally willing to stand down, but I'd like to hear from the other committee members.
Mr. Diamond?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think the concern and the comment that that we ensure that there be a public comment is in order, and I have no problem with that being incorporated into the motion. I think that it's logical and appropriate, so I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. And I plan on voting on the proposal as it was amended.
I'm going to ask Mr. Moore for his comments.
Yeah, we just had 3 public hearings on Friday, and for all 3 of them, we took comments from YouTube. So I'm not understanding the issue here.
I'm confused too.
I guess my concern is, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, and Ryan, thank you. But I just looked at YouTube now, and I know that comments are turned off. People can't comment on our committee meetings. People should be able to comment on our committee meetings and all our board meetings. And I've heard that public comment is turned off during the board meeting also.
Okay, Ms. Bramer and then Ms. Sieber.
I don't know what to say exactly. I was hoping to hear from Administrator Moore. I do think that I noticed on Friday that we did take comments on the public hearing, the official public hearing through the YouTube, which I thought was good so that we can hear from the public on those official matters. And I pulled up YouTube just now when you said that, and I can see the comments. And Don Lehman just typed something and said, made a comment. So I don't know what is going on yours. But
It's the same YouTube. I started this not long after the meeting started. Public comments were turned off. Said so right on the bottom.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak to him.
I'm sorry.
I don't think
Mr. Wild, please address the chair and don't interrupt. Go ahead, Ms. Bramer.
I was going to say, to make people feel comfortable that we will be taking comments through the YouTube. Maybe that is appropriate to have the resolution say that.
That's fine with me. I mean, obviously, Mr. Moore stated we always take public comments for public hearings. But if we want to be added another line, that's fine with me. Ms. Sieber, did you have a comment?
I just wondered if we could ask Mr. Lehman to please read the comments on YouTube at this point.
Okay, I'm open for that. Mr. Lehman, would you read any comments?
There are comments. The commenting, I believe Supervisor Wild's looking at the wrong spot on the page. Where people comment on our YouTube meetings is in the chat function. Comments below the meeting are that's a different part of it, and I'm not sure what that is. That's never been turned on any of our meetings before. It's always been in the chat window where people actually comment. And Chairwoman Sieber did comment and typed in this chat window, as did I, that she wrote, "Would you please ask Mr. Wild if you can hear my comment that I'm typing right now? I'd prefer that we recognize that comments are working online right now." So that was a discussion just to show that the comments in the chat function are actually working right now. So.
Thank you, Don. Miss Allen?
I don't know if this helps at all, but like for the last 3 public hearings we just held last meeting, the resolution itself speaks to when the public hearing will be held, and the notice of public hearing, which is a separate document we publish, that speaks to how comments are accepted. And the 3 that I read last, all of them mentioned that you can email comments, you can request a Zoom link, or you can comment online. So those things are usually spelled out in the notice of public hearing that's published so that those that are wanting to comment know how to comment. Not everyone who may want to come in and comment is going to read the resolution. So while it can be done both ways, I'm not saying that it can't be, but typically that's how we handle it.
I do understand, and I'm sorry if I've misrepresented what's happening here. But again, if you look at the bottom of the YouTube page, none of these comments are ever saved. It's a chat. It disappears.
Okay.
And I would think that these comments are such that they should be saved into the record. But just leave it as it is. I know that I've raised the point, and hopefully we can get the word out. If people want to comment, they have the right way to be able to do that.
I think we're all in agreement. Yes, Ms. Hogan, thank you for raising your hand. And in the future, if a supervisor would like to be addressed, please raise your hand. Just don't start jumping in and talking. Thank you. Ms. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to answer a question that was posed earlier. Essex County is going to bring this law forward in May.
Thank you very much. And obviously Washington County is on board and Saratoga County is going forward also. Any other comments? Okay, so we've had the question, we've had the motion, we've had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, experts, for joining us. And hopefully when we go with the public hearing that you either come in person or be glad to hear your comments. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can stick around for the rest of the meeting or you can leave. It's up to you.
Back to work.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Getney. Okay, the second part of the agenda is Intercounty Legislative Committee of the Adirondack Resolution Number 2 of 2021, resolution urging the governor and federal government to expand broadband and rural cellular coverage to all New Yorkers. So we have a motion by Mr. Leggett to bring it to the floor, a second by Mr. Diamond. Discussion.
Is there anybody else
Mr. Leggett.
here to speak to that, or on inter-county, I can give a little?
We don't have anybody else to speak to that per se today, Mr. Leggett.
This has come through inter-county. We would request your support behind this resolution. Pretty straightforward. It's in the packet here.
Okay, does any committee members have any question? It is right in the packet. It's fairly straightforward. Seeing none. Hearing none. Okay, I guess I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, those are all the action items today.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Mr. Conover and then Ms. Bramer. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to try to do this as artfully and as tactfully as I can. I think that this committee is obliged to send out a correspondence to every member of the entire Board of Supervisors. And in that correspondence, I would recommend that the clerk quotes from sections 4.30 of Robert's Rules of Order. I won't read the whole thing, but I just want you to know that what it says is debate must be confined to the merits of the pending question. Speakers must address their remarks to the chair, maintain a courteous tone, and especially in reference to any divergence of opinion, avoid interjecting a personal note into debate. To this end, they must never attack or make any allusion to the motives of members. And it goes on to say, and it also says that in actuality, if you can, avoid even using a supervisor's name. In other words, you've heard the chair many times in committee and elsewhere say, please, your chair just said it, please speak to the issue, maintain your decorum. And so I would ask that this be sent out to the whole board. And the reason I say that, Mr. Chairman, is all of us bear a responsibility for the enforcement of our rules. It's not just the chairperson of a committee or the chairperson of the board. There are rules. And I will regret forever at a certain moment in time not being more fleet afoot, if you will, or more aware. And I think that probably all of us probably think like that. And so I would ask that that section be sent out to all of the board members, because I think it's critically important that the words that you see here that are mandatory words be well understood. And I get it. I get the heat, the hotness of debate. I get the emotion of the issue. And I get that on occasion, of course, there can be transgressions. But I think it's very important that everyone understand our rules in this regard. In furtherance, I also would like sections 62.2 through 62.5 of Robert's Rules to also be communicated to our board. And this rule deals with the when a member asks for a point of order. And I think all members need to understand what a point of order is, when it's raised, and why it takes precedent. And once again, it's up to all of us to understand what a point of order is, when it's raised, and the priority that it has. And so I'd ask that this section also be sent off to the board. And I'm not going to interpret on it at all. I'm not going to point to any particular situation. I just think it's very important for all of the board to know this. And the final section of Robert's Rules that I think needs to be sent off is 61.13. And 61.13 specifically says that the power to enforce the rules lies with the assembly. It lies with the board. That we have that responsibility, that power and that responsibility. And I would ask that these three sections be sent off with no other ratification on my part, no other ratification I would hope on anyone's part. And that this board, this committee would be unanimous in that these three sections in quotation be sent off to the entire board and every member of the board. And I would make that as a motion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, well said, Mr. Conover. Do I have a second on that? Second by Mr. Leggett. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of doing exactly what Mr. Conover recommended, is sending out those three sections to the entire board? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Very good, Mr. Conover. Ms. Bramer, did you have a comment?
Yes, I have a comment and I have a request for the committee as well. This is something that I've wanted to bring up for some time, and I think that government ops is a good place to do it. And I'd like to try at this point to bring forward a resolution that the county establish a charter commission. We have not had this review, as far as I know, at any time. And I think it would be important and enlightening for us to try to go through this process to understand if there are other ways that we need to have our county functioning. I tried to strip down the resolution as much as possible to eliminate any sort of biases about a predetermination about what we should be doing. And I also did not include any timeframes or hard, firm deadlines that might establish, something that would be untenable for us moving forward. And I also put in there a further resolved about needing to come back to government operations for further evaluation, particularly of the appointment of members to the Charter Commission. And that would involve 10 different people is what it has set out now in the resolution, 10 different people to come through the Government Operations Committee and then be approved by the full Board of Supervisors. So I'd really like us to start this process. It may take a very long time, but I think it's a worthwhile endeavor and that we should get going on it. And I'd like the committee's support.
So are you looking to put this on the agenda for next month, seeing that it's fairly fresh to all of us? It was just passed out. Is that what you're,
Well, I was hoping for a resolution, but if no one's willing to do that today, then that would be the next best, in my opinion.
Okay, so what's the thoughts of the committee? Mr. Leggett proposes next month to be part on the action agenda. Anyone else? Mr. Wild?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some confusion on my part, so it would make sense for us to talk about it a little bit more before we bring it to a discussion and vote in the committee.
Okay, Mr. Diamond?
I'm prepared to discuss it today and vote on it today.
Okay, and Mr. Conover?
I'm not prepared to vote in support of it at this time, and I think everyone knows my position on this. So this came before the board not too very long ago, but I certainly don't believe that it should be brought forward at this time.
Okay, so just an informal questioning of the board members. I think we'll put it on next month's agenda as an action item. And we'll have a full month to digest this proposed resolution. Okay.
I have an item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Bramer. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Conover?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just one other item, and this is more directed at our staff. And what I would say is this. There have been comments made regarding our microphone and a system, and at least some people believe that microphones are being turned off at the direction of people, and I, for one, can't believe that, because there are no rules that this board has relative to the ejection of any supervisor at any time, at any meeting. Now, I know in the last meeting, the microphones went dead. I assume that was a technical glitch, something happened. Some people are reading far, far too much into that. But what I would like to say to the staff, and what I think the committee should say to the staff, is the following: that no supervisor has the authority or has been given the authority by the board to terminate any microphone of any elected official at any time. And I think that it's very important that our staff understand that. And I'm not saying it was done, I don't know. And I find it hard to believe that anybody would do that. And just for the board members' reference, you can go to Robert's Rules of Order and they will speak to the manner in which issues are relative to board members speaking out of turn. The whole procedure for dealing with those types of issues is clearly spelled out in Robert's Rules of Order, up into and including the board, the assembly, us taking action against the board member, should those violations be considered so egregious and repetitive. And so I just want to say that to staff, that unless and until such time as, and I think it's something they already know, and if that's the case, I really apologize for being insulting, and I don't mean to be insulting, but that no one, and I mean no one, has the authority to order the silencing of any elected official's microphone at any time, until such time as this board establishes whatever the procedures would be, and I can't even imagine what they would be. So we had a glitch at the last meeting. I believe it was at a certain part of the meeting, But I just want to put that out there. It can be just a general discussion if you want, but I just want it to understood that I don't believe that anyone intentionally cut off the microphones of anyone during a board meeting. And I don't believe that. And I think that our staff knows better than that. Thank you.
Mr. McGowan, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. On that Supervisor Conover, but Mr. Chairman, I believe at the beginning when we started with our new Chromebooks there, we had microphones for the people here on the board, and we all had the red mic, line to our mic saying that we were, one of the instances I noticed through our microphones here at the county, and because we use the mics in front of us and it goes through the whole system, so our mics were turned off through our Chromebook, so we didn't have backfeeding. So I did get some previous comments from people like our mics were muted, but they weren't for here at the county. So the people in the remote, they all have your mics because you're using your remotes, and that's when your mics go muted in that, and we can see the line through. But here at the county, the Chromebooks, I can't turn off any mics, and I don't believe we can. Is that true, Mr. Chairman, or should I say Tammy? Not to put you on the
Are
spot.
you asking a question? I'll refer it
Yeah.
over to Tammy.
If there is backfeeding from a mic, in order to hear, will try to, if you have your mics on and you have talking in the background, everybody will hear that at times during meetings. You have to move the line simply so we don't hear. It's like when you're taking votes, you're asked to unmute your line, and then when you mute it again, and people struggle with that throughout the meetings. I think that's what you're asking, but here in boardroom, yes. The Chromebooks need to be muted. They're not connected to audio, or there'll be feedback with my phone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, there's been a few little technical difficulties along this path. No one's ever done anything maliciously or anything else. To say otherwise is kind of moot. Ms. Bramer, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just quickly, because I know your Supervisor Wild just raised his hand too, but I would say, certainly the staff is probably not the one to be directing this to. It's your fellow supervisors, Supervisor Conover. So, we're not controlling the mics, and there's other ways. Maybe we pass a resolution saying people need to be muted until they're called upon, so that we don't have feedback and we're clear about who's speaking when and et cetera. That's my suggestion.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's Mr. Wild first, Mr. Conover.
Mr. Chairman, I will yield the floor to Mr. Conover, but I would like to reclaim that opportunity once he's done.
Okay, Mr. Conover.
Yeah, I hear what Ms. Bramer is saying, but candidly, there's nothing that we can do about other than insist on proper behavior relative to board members. But our staff staffs the entire board. Our clerk clerks the entire board. Our clerk does not clerk for a supervisor, not any supervisor. And I just think it's important. And I believe, as Mr. McGowan has said, I believe that we have some technical issues and technical challenges during this COVID period. And I firmly believe that, because I can't believe that anyone would. But as far as the idea of muting any microphone for any good reason, I'm not sure what that good reason would be. And if your microphone's muted, then you have no way to raise a point of order. And your right to raise a point of order exists at any time. It exists at any time, even when there's discussion going on, because that's the whole purpose behind a point of order. And Robert's rules clearly states that the point of order is to be made immediately. Immediately. In fact, it even talks to the person rising in the chamber. Until that point of order is asked what the point of order is, and then there's a process for that. So what I'm saying is that the idea of and frankly, if there is a something that needs to happen relative to a continual and flagrant violation by a board member, well, there are rules for that as well. We don't need to invent our own rules. There are rules that we have that exist within the Robert's rules. We know what they are. We all been provided books. But what I'm saying to all of you is here today is, and I mean this sincerely, is that we all carry that responsibility, all of us. It doesn't fall to our leadership. It falls to all of us. It falls to all of us during our meetings, whether a committee meeting or a board meeting. And I just want to make sure that, you know, that some of the issues perhaps that we've had going forward, that they don't continue. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wild and then Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I do have another item I'd like to bring up, but I'm just going to follow on with this discussion. Do we have any idea why the whole boardroom was muted during the board meeting Friday?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
No, there was a period of time where no one could hear the boardroom. As soon as we realized the microphone was muted, it was unmuted. We don't know.
We don't know how it was muted?
It could have been.
It mutes on that computer.
Yeah, it mutes
So
on
it's
that
not like
computer.
there's someone sitting there.
Sometimes if someone picks this line here,
Okay.
I mean, it's technology. I wish I had a better answer, but it's technology.
That's fine. It came at an unopportune time. So
Okay.
There's never an opportune time for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Moore?
Hey, look, I was just going to ask again what we're talking about. If someone has a thought that a member of the staff muted a member of the board, I'd like to know when that happened so that I can look into it. I have no idea what we're talking about. If anybody thinks that something like that happened, I'd ask that you come to me. As far as I know, the staff has no ability to mute a member of the board. It's up to the chair of whoever's presiding over the meeting to call a member to order. Our rules of the board speak to it. It's on page 4, B7. Any member upon being called to order shall take his or her seat and remain there until the point raised is determined. If the point be sustained, he or she shall not further proceed except in order unless by permission. That's not a staff function. So if anybody has any thought that something happened that shouldn't have happened, please talk to me about it.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Sieber?
Thank you. In this resolution that you're also, or in the resolution that you've made or direction from the board to be sending out particular copies of the rules of the board, I also asked that page 4 of 8 of our standing rules be included to what Mr. Moore just identified as number 7. I think that's very relevant to the discussion that we're having here today. To that point, for about 14 months now, every single meeting, I've asked for a training on Robert's rules. I appreciate the opportunity to have been elected chair and to be able to provide that training to the board. I think we have all found it incredibly helpful. You've also all been provided with a copy of Robert's rules in the 12th edition. If you have not picked up your copy from January, I suggest you ask our clerk of the board that. And lastly, I'll just mention, I do appreciate the board being muted on January 8th when I took my oath of office. I was not aware what was occurring during that oath of office, but there were board members that were swearing, that used profanities, that made very off-color comments that should have never been put on to our public. And it was a horrible representation of the tone and the tenor of this board. That is something that if you watch our YouTube video, you can still hear it. My children have heard it. Our friends, our family have heard it, and every other chair before me has had an opportunity to be sworn in, and it's been a proud moment to represent this board. I continue to feel it's an honor to do so, but I want to call your attention to the fact that there have been times this entire boardroom has not been muted, and that's exactly what occurred. So let's be fair. Let's call it what it is. But thank you. I would appreciate that additional information being sent out as well.
Okay, without objection, I will include 4.08 to the information being sent out to the board.
No objection.
No objection. Mr. Conover has a question.
No, I have no objection to any part or to its entirety. Our entire rules being sent out, and our rules are on the internet site, on our internet site, and anybody can print them up, pull them up, and print them out. And and I had every confidence that there has been, and there is no effort on the part of anyone relative to the muting of any microphones, and there is no authorization to do that, and I want people to understand that. that there is, no one's been provided any authorization by the assembly to do anything in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, we will add that to the other points that we're going to be sending out to the board. Mr. McGowan, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I just want to comment on, along with Supervisor Conover. We need to be mindful that we are on the mics and being recorded and going all over there. And I remember the incidents on the swearing in and that, and it is hurtful because I've been asking for the unity here at the board and all working together. But really, as Supervisor Conover, so we need to be mindful of what we're doing up here and how we speak and be careful what we mumble underneath our breath, because it is amazing what these mics do pick up. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Stroud, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree. There's many issues that have arisen as of late that, we need to address. This is an example of some of them. And I agree, foul language is inappropriate, and perhaps we should censure the supervisor whomever did that. But I also believe that if a supervisor comes forward with some thoughts about various matters, that name calling is just as bad as using offensive language. You should not name call an individual because they're putting forth thoughts that they're having and they want the board to consider. Yeah, so there is a decorum of late that I've seen that I don't like. I think this and many other issues need to be addressed.
Okay, Mr. Wild, and then I'm going to ask for, we can go on, I guess, all day. So go ahead, Mr. Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
This is not the most pleasant conversation that I'm looking forward to, but I'd like to make a resolution because it needs to go in front of the whole board for censure. The comments that were made during the board meeting by a number of supervisors regarding misogyny and the name calling that came along with that was definitely inappropriate. It's against all the rules of Robert's Rules of Order. It is also the responsibility of the chair of the board to stop that, which did not happen. So my motion will be that we were going to ask for a vote of censure, Supervisor Bramer, also Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Beatty, and Supervisor McGowan, who also jumped in on those comments with their support, full support of what was said. It's inappropriate for the board. I'm not sure if censure is the right way. We could go a different route, demand a full public apology, because it's against, again, the rules of the board. It's against decorum. It's under the dignity of what this board should have between each other. We need to respect each other's opinions. I've always done my best to respect everyone's opinion. And I've seen instances where that hasn't occurred, but at the majority of time it has. We need to address this. I'm not sure the exact way it needs to happen, but something needs to be done to set an example to stop it. It's the only thing I can think of. So I'm going to bring this motion to the floor of censure. If there's another way we can do it, I'm totally open. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am done for now. Hopefully I'll have a second.
Well, you've had about 15 today, and I've been very accommodating, as you know, so you're more than welcome. Mr. Moore, did you have a comment?
Oh, just procedurally, when we come out of these committee meetings, the clerk of the board's office sends a memo to the county attorney's office requesting that resolutions be drawn up, and the county attorney's office begins working today, writing those resolutions. So I didn't get, I got Bramer, Hogan, Beatty, McGowan. I didn't get whether there was another supervisor or two other supervisors in there. I was trying to get my pen.
I thank you, Ryan. And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I was considering adding the chair of the board, but she's doing the best she can. I'm trying to give her a break, but she should have stopped it. And hopefully that will happen the next time someone does that. So just those four, they all agreed wholeheartedly of the comments that were made, unless someone else wants to make a amendment.
Mr. Moore?
What I was trying to get across in addition to the names is what exactly is desired to be in a resolution that could be coming out of this committee. We do need some details.
Well, I would say that we're requesting a vote of censure. I'm not looking for removal of any committee, but I'm looking for a vote of censure and a public apology from all noted supervisors. I don't want to take anyone down. I don't want to take anyone off this board. That's totally destructive. But I think it's appropriate to send a message that we need to change the way we treat each other.
Mr. Diamond, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I do disagree with Supervisor Wild's position, because at that time, a lot of these issues that come forward to us are very passionate. And I believe honestly and truly that the intent was to provoke this discussion that occurred on Friday. So I don't agree that sanctioning should take place. Matter of fact, I think several of these supervisors continue to poke and try to create these, what I want to call discouraging and obnoxious discussions that take place that prevent us from doing the county's business. And I'm hoping that that would change. I mean, we go back to January when we selected a chairperson. I voted for that particular chairperson, and I believe she's done an honest and truly good job. And I also voted with the idea of allowing her to assemble her team. And at that point in time, when it went to the full board for approval, 19 of the supervisors voted for it. Actually, I would have to say one supervisor voted for it, and then when he realized another supervisor voted against it, he decided to put into the minutes of the meeting that he was opposed to do that. All of this hasn't been constructive since January. I would hope that the board, because they talk about, working together, respecting everybody, would just recognize the fact that we have the supervisor, chairwoman has been elected, that she should be have an opportunity to carry out her plan. And if there's supposed to be changes coming, if they want changes, why don't they install the changes, in January of 2022? But, every week every month we come to these board meetings and the same questions are asked, the same comments are asked, but they're asked in a different manner. And the idea is to poke and create problematic issues that come up. So sanctioning or, what supervisor has been put on the floor, I don't agree with it at all. I think, it's up to us to recognize that we have new leadership and that we have to work collectively together. And I'd like to see some of this finally stop. It's aggravating and annoying, not only to us as board members, but it's I hear it out in the public all the time. I've been in government for 25 years and we've hit an all-time low as far as I'm concerned. And people are actually criticizing all of us for what we're doing here. So I object.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Conover?
No, thank you. I mean, what I tried to do here was to basically, I believe in due process, that perhaps people are doing things, maybe they don't even realize what they're doing when they're doing it. They don't even know they're violating the rules when they're violating the rules. And so what I was hoping in the communication is just to communicate to everyone that these are our rules. This is how we're supposed to operate. We don't want our meetings degenerating into name calling. That would be, that would just be terrible. And so, so what I would ask of Mr. Wild today is that to treat the letter as that basically that folks are being put on notice that these are our rules, that these rules are to be followed, and there are consequences for not following them. And that, at least for today, we leave it at that. Now, should this continue going forward, believe me when I tell you, you will have my second in a heartbeat. You will have my second in a heartbeat on some type of process remediation should this continue. But for today, I would say, I think that the letter is sufficient. And the other thing that concerns me about doing that is that, once again, all of us bore responsibility for stopping these egregious violations of our rules. All of us, every one of us. And I sat there, and I admit I was pretty taken aback by it all, but I didn't immediately call a point of order, and continue with a point of order until I was recognized to stop what was obviously a violation of our rules. And there were 18, 17 other supervisors in the room that didn't do that. And that's what I'm saying here today, that we all have that responsibility to make sure that our rules are observed. And it has nothing to do with assembling a team. It has nothing to do with picking anyone. And any supervisor has the right to continue to debate any issue at any time. And anyone that suggests otherwise is sadly mistaken. And they have the right to speak to the issue as long and as hard as they wish to. That's what elected government is. And so I would ask Mr. Wild that at least at this moment in time that you reconsider and perhaps withdraw that and let the letter be sufficient. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other comments?
There's no second.
Mr. Wild, there's no second?
There's no second, so I'm just going to was just curious before I pull that
I guess.
motion.
Okay.
There's no second.
There's no second, so it doesn't come to the floor.
Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to dismiss. Anybody want to leave? Or we? Motion by Mr. Diamond, second by myself. I can leave. Okay, thank you. Committee's adjourned.